Good evening, everyone. We're really excited to have you here on this evening for our North Carolina Poetry Society new book launch. And we are excited to have with us someone who is no stranger to the North Carolina Poetry Society, Dr. Bill Griffin, who is our dedicated treasurer and just a wonderful member and an awesome poet. So we are all excited about that. And so along that vein, I would like to share with you some information about the author, Bill Griffin. Bill Griffin is a family physician in rural North Carolina. His poems have appeared in numerous publications, and he has published several collections, including Crossing the River, Main Street Rag 2017, and River Story, Tree Story, Orchard Street 2018. He has served on the board of the North Carolina Poetry Society for 2 decades and showcases the work of Carolina poets at his blog, griffinpoetry.com. In 2008, Bill and his wife, Linda French Griffin, collaborated on Snake Den Ridge, a bestiary, an illustrated book of poems set in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. In 2010, the choral suite, The Wanderer's Carols, lyrics by Bill and music by Mark Daniel Merritt, premiered for Christmas at Biltmore House in Asheville, North Carolina. In 2012, Bill spent a week at the North Carolina Zoological Park as poet in residence for the Poetry of Conservation project. I am so glad that I have gotten to know Bill Griffin in this poetry journey, and I know many of you here have wonderful stories that you can share just about how wonderful a poet he is, but just how good a person he is as well. So I present to you on this evening the Bill Griffin. Take it away.
Thanks, Regina. Are you all hearing me okay? So let's just start with a poem. This is from my new chapbook from the Orchard Street Press. The title of the book is How We All Fly. And the poem is Save. 3 yellow jackets have gathered to worship a dead mouse. They are jealous of their god. If you nudge the mouse with a stick, they will sting you. How we all fly to that which we hope will save us. What if it is really the mouse who worships the wasps? To take its bit of something on the path to becoming nothing and make it new. So I want to tell you a story. Once upon a time, and this was in the last century, for goodness sake. Once upon a time, there was a small town with a small library, and a small town librarian who had these big ideas and this vision. She decided to invite a famous poet to town. And she didn't just invite this famous poet to come and read poems and sell his books. She invited him so that she could get her small town people to read some poems themselves. And so for like 6 weeks, every Sunday evening, a little class gathered with a famous poet, and they read recent poems. And get this, these were by poets who were not dead. You can believe that, okay? And so as they would gather each week, there was one guy, especially in that class, who had not read a poem in 20 years. And as the weeks went by, he had his mind blown. And he was saying stuff like, poetry can say this, poetry can do this? And one poem in particular reached out and grabbed this guy by the neck and held on and would not let go and shook and shook and shook until finally said, okay, I will write a poem too. I can do this. Well, turns out it was not as easy as it looked. And really, there was no one in this little small town for the guy to share his poems with. And then he heard of NCPS, North Carolina Poetry Society, this mythical place where you could join up and send in 3 poems and get them back with comments and critique. Well, he did that. And he checked his mailbox every day. Nothing. Months went by. Nothing. So finally, he fired off a little note to NCPS and he said, where's my critiques? And the critique czar said, whoops, we'll send them to critiquer number 2. And lo and behold, within a week, he got the critiques from critiquer number 1 and critiquer number 2 in the same mail. And so he opened them up. He read number 1 first. One of the poems the guy had sent in was named Dead Cat. Sorry, Joan, you might want to do this. Dead Cat. And critiquer number 1 had this to say, it tries to be funny and ends up being a little distasteful. Really, it is pretty awful. But critiquer number 2 said this about Dead Cat. I love the viewpoint you've granted me with this poem. I'm a secret voyeur. It's as if you've made the reader a partner in crime. We can delight in the death of this prowling beast together, but must keep our joy hidden from those who mourn its passing. I'm still concealing a smile for this poem. And critiquer number 2 also said, I hope to see more of your poems in more places. Well, for the denouement, Guy submitted Dead Cat to that venerable Southern literary journal, Wanzi's Fried Chicken. Raise your hand if you ever heard of them. And it was accepted, the guy's first published poem. And because of the comments and encouragement of critiquer number 2, everyone, all of us, have continued to write better and better poems, and we all live happily ever after. The end. Thank you. But there is an afterword to this story to reveal the secret identity of critiquer number 2, Karen Stewart. Yes. And in case you didn't figure it out, I'm the guy.
Really, Bill? I said that?
You said that. I've got it. I never throw anything away, I tell you.
Oh my goodness. You're gonna make me cry. I'm glad I
So you were my first contact with reality outside of my small town and drew me into NCPS. Thank you, Karen. And then lo and behold, the first meeting I ever went to, Poetry Society, she came walking up to the door and introduced herself to me. And I think your son was.
Yes. Yeah.
So
he was dazzled by you.
So I'm not going to read Dead Cat because it has been over 20 years and it does smell. But I want to read the poem that grabbed me by the throat all those years ago. And it's still my favorite poem. I still get this poem out for special occasions. And I haven't hung it on my Christmas tree, but it's special for me. This is a poem titled Hymn, Hymn, by A.R. Ammons. Hymn. And it's no accident probably for the homophone there, the hymn, Hymn. I know if I find you, I will have to leave the earth and go on out over the sea marshes and the brant and bays, and over the hills of tall hickory, and over the crater lakes and canyons, and on up through the spheres of diminishing air, past the black set noctilucent clouds where one wants to stop and look, way past all the light diffusions and bombardments, up farther than the loss of sight into the unseasonal, undifferentiated, empty, stark. And I know if I find you, I will have to stay with the earth, inspecting with thin tools and ground eyes, trusting the microvilli, sporangia, and simplest cylinderates, and praying for a nerve cell with all the soul of my chemical reactions, and going right on down where the eye sees only traces. You are everywhere, partial and entire. You are on the inside of everything and on the outside. I walk down the path, down the hill where the sweet gum has begun to ooze spring sap at the cut, and I see how the bark cracks and winds like no other bark, chasmal to my ant soul running up and down. And if I find you, I must go out deep into your far resolutions. And if I find you, I must stay here with the separate leaves. So I still love that poem and aspire to write something even remotely as incisive and inspiring. And if it's any consolation to you, even though I get that poem out and read it 2 or 3 times a year, I still have to reach for the dictionary sometimes. But in this poem, A.R. Ammons is not explicit really about the you he is searching for. I know if I find you, I'll have to leave the earth. I know if I find you, I must stay here with the separate leaves. And so what is it? Is this a transcendent being, something beyond, or is it some intrinsic presence, something within? Or I wonder myself, is it just possible when he says, I know if I find you, he might be saying, I know if I am to find myself, I must stay here with the separate leaves. So my hope for this chapbook, How We All Fly, is that it raises similar questions, maybe not even close to answering them, but asking things like, what is our nature? How do we discover ourselves? How is it that we all fly to that which we hope will save us? And what might that even be, really? And is there any hope for us, for our earth? And if so, where do we find it? So if you find yourself asking questions as you read this book, I will be happy. So I'm just going to read 3 poems from the book, and then we'll go from there and see how much time we have. This one's called Great Blue. When afternoon slants the marsh and water has drunk too much sun, silver dreams cross-cut, stagger the current. When long waiting has brought me everything I desire, I lift myself from among you, slow breeze rises and I rise, heaviness falls from me, light is all. Will you then look up as my silence shadows you homeward? Overlooked, deliberate as meditation beside your morning. Noon's glare, perhaps you doubt I exist at all. But another blue dusk will startle as I pass over, legs trailing, neck drawn back, angel's wings or dragons. Discover who it is that is always with you. And I want to read one called Wing. Wing. This is kind of appropriate for this time of year when you look out on your porch and see what the spiders have done. They've been busy. Wing. Her web has spread its wing high along the porch screen, feathered with leaves that sift down from the beach. It appears to katydid as refuge after long September nights of calling for companionship, but when he lights, she darts from hiding. He will not perpetuate more leaf-winged singers. She will spin a soft egg nest, and there will be spiderlings. And what of the wing of silk Nights unwind their length. The longing of its stickiness dissolves. No new leaves fly to fledge its sagging arc. Here comes the man with a broom to scratch it down, to purify the morning light through empty branches. Here comes the question, whether we will ever learn to fly. And a love poem, Sunset Roanoke Sound. So Roanoke Sound is that little body of water between Roanoke Island and Body Island, where Nag's Head and Kill Devil Hills and Kitty Hawk are. And sunset on Roanoke Sound. And even if we transients drone and scrape along Route 158 and mercury vapor drowns the restaurant parking lot across the street, even if the inn veranda obligates its porch lights to burn behind us all night long, even if exhaust and fryer grease have swamped the pungent marsh life and marsh death on the seaward breeze, even so, the stunted pines jostle aside and darken, stark against the last sky glow, your own glow, where you lean against the rail and beguile me with histories of water and the people drawn to it, oaring across the years, all who will be drawn, beguiled, captivated, compelled to love. Beguile, yes, which hints of trickery, but opens to embrace, enthrall. And even if the world and I grow black, still brighter you become, while from your songs stray scraps of contrail and frayed cirrus reform, arise, a great billfish leaping free of the blue horizon deep, reborn to gold, fire, flight. And I think I want to read another sunset poem to go with that. Okay. So our librarian here is amazing. And so she was the one who got Tony Abbott to come in and teach this class 25 years ago or whenever it was. And now she has these young librarians working for her. And one of them plays the upright bass and has a buddy who's a jazz guitarist. And so 2 or 3 times a year, she has them set up in the library conference room on a Friday afternoon and play jazz, and people come in and read poems. So it's tremendous fun. So this is the poem I read for Jazz Poetry Night about a month ago. And I said, trigger warning, it has the word shit in it. And the guitarist said, yeah, well, stand right up and slap us. Okay, that's great. So, sunset. If this is a one-word poem. Sunset, one-word poem. If watching the sun slip west were a poem, you would write a single word, and her eyes would fill with purple and gold, the taste of red wine on her lips, and on her shoulder the touch of her lover, while he would frown at the red refraction shit we spew into our atmosphere, and his father would shiver at the passage of time, burying him cold into oblivion, while their little girl wishes she could stay outdoors for 5 more minutes of hide and seek with her cousins. But we all know a poem can't be just one word. So how long did you all want me to continue? Till like 5 more minutes? Something like that?
Regina's making head motions.
Okay.
I'd say, 10 minutes.
You want to
ten,
leave a little time for question, answer, and comments if
Right.
possible, right? Okay.
yeah, and random burst of poetry if that comes over you too, Bill.
Okay,
So
that sounds great. Well, I'm going to just read 2 narrative poems then, and then you can ask me questions. How's that? So, Black Cherry. We found the snapshot a month after he died. In the pale photo, Jeff holds a shovel, leans to rest his hand on Jody's shoulder, where she kneels to hug their little girl, still a toddler. That shovel. Was he using it to bust up turf for tomato vines and beans? Digging clay for his wheel and kill? The ink fades, so shall our memories. While a little color yet remains, I imagine this. He's planting a tree, so like him, something new to stand bright among the dark trunks that frame the 3 of them, a black cherry. And today, that girl tries to circle both hands around its girth, while pink blossoms bless her hair. And one more, lead us on. This mountain walk we planned all week, layers to wear, waning light, how cold at elevation. Winter unlayers herself as we ascend. The elm that guards bald summit litters treasure at our feet, dry pods and aster heads, all we expect to find except these crows who warn each other as we pass. But after wading off the trail into the sea of brittle brown and burrs, she spies a wakened beetle crawling up her arm. And when we stop, 2 golden butterflies as bright as summer fly to lead us on. Thanks.
it went too quickly, Bill. Way too quickly. Oh my goodness. Do we want to unmute everybody and just give Bill a crazy rousing bit of applause, and we're gonna have to egg you on for some more poetry, I think, Bill. But wow. Wow.
Wonderful.
You guys feel free to unmute.
Bravo.
Yeah, very
Holy
nice.
cow.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Wow.
Oh my great goodness. How was it for you, Bill?
Too quiet.
That is the thing, right? That's the problem
Yeah.
with the Zoom. It's either too quiet or just, yeah.
But it is neat to be able to see all your faces out there. You can't tell which one I'm looking at, but I'm looking at all of you there. So Karen, you had asked me to mention something about my blog. So
Please.
I know
yes.
a lot of you have visited it before, and I try to pull together mostly Carolina poets, but a lot of other poetry, just whatever I'm reading at the time, something that grabs me, and I will post, and usually some meditation on the poetry and some meditation on what's happening in life and some nature photos. But if you want to read that hymn by A.R. Ammons, it's certainly on the blog.
Oh.
And Bill, that is www.griffinpoetry.com, correct?
Correct. I don't think you need the www, just https://griffinpoetry.com will do it. But, or if you just type in griffinpoetry.com, you'll get it, right?
I think, yeah, it's that popular. It just pops up. It's so good, you guys. It's, I just have to say your blog, Bill, like if you're ever having a day where you're just like, oh God, this day, you can go to your blog, you can go to that page and just like be filled with joy and awe. And it is such a treat. It's how long have you been doing that?
Well, I've been posting weekly for 3 years. I had the blog kind of off and on before that. And I retired 3 years ago. And my goal was to post every week. And then during April for Earth Day month, I usually post 2 or 3 times a week.
It is just such a gift. You guys,
That
you just
blog is often the highlight of my week.
Well,
Very
thanks.
it
much so.
is.
So I'm
Yeah.
almost everybody I'm seeing in the little like Cheez-Its on my screen
Jesus.
are featured on my blog in one form or another. So go find yourselves.
Can I
It's
add to this? I know, Bill, I have had the distinct honor of being featured in your blog, and I just have to tell everybody how much you pay attention to and really give just I mean, he actually looked at, I think it was the poem uh oh my gosh, This Fire Tastes Like. And I thought, I read it and I was like, that's not the first line. And I emailed Bill, I said, I thank you so much. I said, that's not the first line. He was like, yes, it is. And I went back and looked at my book and he was right. I was like, oh my God. Somewhere in my mind, I had changed the line and all of that. And so I just want everybody to know how just the care you take with
yeah.
not only your own poetry, but the poetry of others and your assessment and your support. It just means so much. You are more than an author. You are a valued poetry community friend and brother. Okay.
Well,
Yes.
I'm glad you used that word community because you all see Kathleen Wakefield out there. So someone recommended that I read a book by Patricia Hooper, and I did and put it on the blog. And she recommended I read a book by Kathleen Wakefield, and I did, and it was wonderful. And I put it on the blog, and then we've like become,
Oh,
pen pals since then. And thank you, Kathleen, for your really, really kind comments about this current book. It's really, I'm on cloud nine today. It's great. Thank you.
that's great. And Bill, I just want to mention too, your photography is another layer of absolute delight
Absolutely.
on your posts. They're just, oh my goodness. So wonderful.
Well,
It's
yeah,
all
if you
joy.
have a favorite, let me know because I'm always wondering
Oh,
which
so
works and which, yeah, thanks. Thank you.
so good. So I did want to ask you about, and you guys, just in case you've had some kind of problem and haven't purchased this yet, this is Bill's newest book, mm, How We All Fly. I love this so much. Bill, can you just tell us, like, this is an amazing collection, and I'm a huge fan, and all of your collections are amazing, but specifically, can you just talk about, like, how did these poems come to be in this collection? Like, what was your process like?
Well, I want to give a huge vote of thanks to Jack Christofko, who is the editor at the Orchard Street Press in Gates Mills, Ohio. I used to actually live 20 miles from Gates Mills when I was in high school, but who knew, And he publishes an annual journal called Quiet Diamonds, and it includes a contest. And I would really encourage y'all to look at that. And so I've submitted to it several times. And this year, and then the winners of his contests, he often will ask them to put together a collection for him. So he publishes maybe 6 or 8 or 10 chapbooks a year. So this past year, I came in second in his contest. And he, a couple of months later, I got a letter saying, can you expand on this? And so the poem that was in that won the award was Fireweed. I think that's right. Now I'm having to remind yes, Fireweed. Okay. And so I looked for for other poems that kind of had that same theme, not only the botanical focus, but sort of the theme of renewal or regeneration or questioning or finding. And so some of these poems are pretty old and some of them are all within the last year or two, and put them all together, and he helped to curate that. And he's a really nice guy to work with. And he took this picture, and it turns out that he lives in Ohio, but this is a photo he took at Emerald Isle.
Oh,
and
wow.
there were all these synergies going on, serendipities.
Yeah,
And
it was meant to be.
maybe I would like to read you Fireweed if I could.
You're reading my mind, please.
Okay. So, if you live out west, fireweed is this purple red flower that comes up after the prairie has burned. But if you live in the southeast, fireweed, it's also called pilewort or burnweed, and it doesn't hardly even have a flower. It's in the aster family, but you think of asters as being like a sunflower with that ray of flower of petals around the edge, which are the ray flowers. Well, fireweed doesn't have any ray flowers. It's just got this green spike that sticks up, and you can't even see the flowers, but then the seeds open up, and it looks like, a massive, it looks like the King Kong of dandelions. It's about 8 feet tall. And so all these, so if you go out on a fall day in North Carolina and you see little wispy seeds going by, it's probably fireweed.
Oh.
And so one other interesting thing, we had a tornado here in April. It knocked down a dozen trees in our yard. And before that, everything was shade and we had no understory. With the trees gone, we got fireweed blooming everywhere.
Yay.
So I had taken some fourth graders out for a nature hike from our local school last fall, and that caused me to write this poem. Fireweed. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. He flinches when it dusts his cheek, but all wing, no sting in this puff, this tuft, feather and down, fairy light as breath, airy as memory, suspended hope. He spots its upright maker, pulls ahead, lets the children pluck and blow an armada into autumn currents. Flotilla of scintilla, they whoop joyful in chase of what too quickly flies beyond their reach. Aster family, moon disk inflorescence without sun's rays, opportunist, simply weed, expecting, even desiring to be dispersed. Now the man catches one, shows the children its angel's eye, its seed that anchors every lofted wisp. And which of them will find a faith so numinous when flame eats the meadow of their youth? Which ones rise again, not to move, but to be the mountain, straight-stemmed, corim-capped, set seed in season and release, ascend upon the fickle breeze higher, farther than he could ever imagine.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Bill. Wow.
Thanks.
Well, I have a million questions, but I'm just going to check in and see if anybody has anything they'd like to ask Bill. Poetry wise, probably, or something similar. No, yes, comments. Okay, I'm gonna.
I have a question, Bill. I'm curious where you first got acquainted with the A.R. Ammons poem and why in particular it speaks to you so much.
Well, it was in this class that the librarian had organized, and I wish I had stolen that textbook. It was like the National Council of Libraries program or something, and they had a textbook of contemporary poets. So Sharon Olds and Louise Gluck and Alan Shapiro and A.R. Ammons and living poets at the time. And so we read the poems, then we got together and discussed them. And my memory is that Tony Abbott was the one who was teaching the class. Although it could have been Joseph Patanti because he taught a class in our library too. But anyway, that poem in particular just, I'd never seen that kind of language in poetry, and I have a science background, chemistry and biology, and it just made me think there's a whole nother world out there that I didn't know existed in poetry. And it looks easy to write that poem, but Nope.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. Oh,
And of
I'm
course,
so
A.R.
glad.
Ammons was born in North Carolina, down in the
Mhm.
Sand Hills, and he went to Wake Forest when it was still in Wake Forest, North Carolina, and got a biology degree and actually worked, uh, you know, I forget, some kind of maybe something related to science before he went to, I think it was Cornell, and ended up teaching for 30 or 40 years and being poet laureate of the United States and so forth and so on. And he died in about 2008. And he was also a watercolorist, and Wake Forest University has a huge collection of his watercolors.
Oh, wow. Well, Bill, you're just a wealth of information.
Well, I'm old, man. You gather a lot of stuff together when you hang out for a long time.
Thank you for sharing.
Always something more to learn, right?
And no, I'm going to say that's one of the things I always love about your poetry so much is there's like concrete hard facts in there, and then you just take it on 50 different levels. It's just I love what you do. I love how you do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it starts out, you think, okay, all right, well, here's a bird poem. And yes, it may have a bird in it, but it's never a bird poem. It's always a lot of things, a lot, a lot. I was going to ask you, like, this may be really weird because I know you have your new collection that everybody's totally excited about. But I was wondering if you could just tell us a few words, and I'll hold up a prop about like what's in these books, these other books that you have. Is
Oh,
that just too
oh,
weird
that
to
one up with
ask
the
you?
feather. No, that would be great. I'd love to mention that first book. So my mother did that for me for the book cover. It's a charcoal of a feather.
Oh my
She's
goodness.
95. She's still living. She was still doing portraits of animals until about a year ago, but she's really not picking up the brush. But if you give
Oh,
her some crayons or colored pencils and show her a picture of a cat, she will draw the cat. And more than once, her caregivers have said, I didn't know she could do that.
oh my
So,
goodness. Well,
so
that's a treasure.
yeah, so
Well,
that
let's
was my
see.
first book. I entered a contest at Pudding House, which was also out of Ohio. And so it placed in the contest. And those are bird poems. There's a bird in
Yes.
every one. Right.
So did you set out to what inspired you to pull the poems did you think I'm going to do a book of bird poems, and you sat down and wrote some bird poems and picked the best ones, or
Well, I think realized I had a whole lot of bird poems and thought I'd put them together rather than
collected them?
intentionally try to write something for the book. So the
Well,
current poem might not be about a bird, but they all have birds in them.
this is beautiful. Well done on that, sir. All right, now I'm going to continue the grilling. Changing woman.
Well,
I'm putting you on the spot.
okay. So I was reading some of the denamed creation mythology, the Navajo, and so Changing Woman created the world.
Oh.
I get that's my daughter on the front up at
Oh.
up at West Jefferson, and I just I guess I was writing poems that had to do with the changes that were going on in our lives at the time.
So you were kind of putting it together this is just where you were at when you were writing at that
Right.
time. All right. How about this one?
So this one actually is very intentional. So other than having two children, this is the most creative collaboration I've ever done with my wife. And
Well done.
So these are 25 poems that are all persona poems spoken by the creatures of the Great Smokies. And they're commenting on each other and on the stupid humans that are in their midst and on their life and in the Smokies. And this is definitely a cautionary tale about the ecology of the earth. So my wife, besides being an artist, is a historian, and she wrote the preface for the book, which is about the need for a new bestiary. So in the Middle Ages, they had bestiaries which were compilations of these fantastical creatures, and some of them were real and some of them were totally imaginary. But we need a new bestiary that teaches us that we are part of one extended, interconnected, interdependent kinship, and that takes us down off of our pedestal and allows us to sit with the other creatures and be one with them. And that's what the book is all about. But so how I wrote it, I was backpacking with my best friend Mike in the Smokies, and we always wanted to see a bear. You always want to see a bear. We never saw a bear because usually we had a bunch of teenagers with us with a youth group, and they made a lot of noise and they smelled bad, and the bears knew we were there. But one day I had gone out from camp and was just looking at a woodpecker up in a tree, and I heard a nut drop behind me. I didn't pay any attention. Then I heard another nut, and I turned around, and it wasn't a nut dropping. It was a bear sneaking up on our camp where we were cooking. And
Oh my great goodness.
And it didn't know I was there. And so I just watched it for a while, and then I talked to it, and it faded into mist. So that was where the first poem came from. And then I kept writing them after that and picked out all the creatures and all the experiences we'd had with them.
And every poem has an illustration, correct?
Right. And so I was pretty much done with all the poems, and I went to Linda and I said, well, would you consider doing the illustrations? And she always has 3 projects she's working on. I said, no, I can't do that. And I said, well, I'm going to dedicate it to Mike. She said, oh, well, I'll do it for Mike. So for about 2 months, she had her desk stacked up with all these field guides and encyclopedias, looking at all the plants, because all the plants that are in the pictures are also mentioned in the poems. And
she did that in 2 months, Bill?
Probably about 2 months.
Good grief. That's amazing. This is such a beautiful book. But
thanks.
Yeah.
Well,
And Karen, there's a folio that he had printed along with that book, remember?
Yes, I have that.
I have it framed hanging over the bar in my dining room.
I did some broadsides. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did some beautiful broadsides.
Beautiful, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Snake Den Ridge Bestiary. All right, Bill, I'm going to keep up. We got 2 to go.
So crossing the river, that's what I did for 40 years as a family doctor here in Elkin. I live in Elkin, and my office is in Jonesville on the other side of the Yadkin River. And so every day I cross the river twice, and some days a lot more than twice. And so this is basically my 40 years of living in a small town. It's not all about the doctor aspect of it, but it's all the characters that I met during 40 years are in there.
Yeah, this book really it really feels like a life. It's so beautiful. I love all your work. And this
another Orchard Street Press, Jack Christofko. This was 4 years ago. Another winning poem in his contest, and he asked me to come up with a collection, and this time I really had a bunch of poems I was putting together with the themes of water and forest. So it's river story and tree story. And there's two sections in the book that have to do with water and woodlands. And
fabulous. Bill, what are you working on now? That's going to be my last question. Who am I kidding? I may
I'm
have
working
some
on
other
doing a blog post every week, which takes a lot of hours.
Right.
But I was telling you, I just got through doing the inaugural Tremont Writers Conference in the Smokies finished 2 weeks ago, and it's left me with a lot of inspiration. And so I'm trying to work on poems that do kind of delve into these questions. You know, what is our nature? What's our relationship to the earth and to each other, and making a community, connections, the ecology of not only our world, but of our human interactions, that sort of thing.
Oh my goodness. Gosh, Bill, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you for
guys.
coming and sharing your words with us and your thoughts. And gosh, you guys, let's give Bill just a huge, gigantic hand and big thanks. And I think we're going to move into open mic now, right, Regina?
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. I do have Joan, Cal, and Hannah down. If you are interested in reading for open mic, please let me know. You can type it in the chat or tell me right now. And we have quite a few people here, so okay.
Come on, y'all.
All right, thank you. All right. Okay. Oh, excellent.
I'll read one, Regina.
All right. This is like fire.
Because I'm obnoxious that way.
Well, Karen, given the volume of poems you write every day, at least on Facebook, you have plenty of poems to choose from.
I have plenty of, now I don't know if they all qualify as poems, but I have plenty of ink to choose from. We'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right.
All right.
So,
Regina, I'm gonna shame you into, you got to share one too.
okay, I will. Pull my leg. That's right. Okay. Paul, are you reading one? Did he leave?
No, he's there. He's
Here?
I'm
he's
here.
pantomiming.
Is that a yes?
Unusually muted. No, I'm good. I have to leave in about in a few minutes myself. So
Oh, okay.
I hope to hear you guys in the next 8 to 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Christy? I can't hear you.
Christy, we see your mouth moving. No words are we hearing.
Give me a minute. Let me make sure I'm not going to have to pop off again. And if I'm going to be here, I'll read something.
Okay. Well, I could put you first.
No, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Okay.
Too much pressure. Too much pressure.
LaVon, Marilyn, Joyce? No? Okay.
Going
All right.
once, going twice. All right.
Yes. And so we're excited to kick off this open mic. We're going to start with Miss Joan. Over here, I'm going to pin you.
And I'm going to mute, and everybody other than Joan can mute also.
Take it away.
All right, I am ready to go. Okay. At the Tree Museum, Morris Arboretum. The last magnolia leaf spins on its joint in a breeze. We wait for its drift through the cage of rising branches. Spinning alone, it might stand for eccentricity, for endings or beginnings. We speculate until between us blows dread of the leaf's release. You, then I, turn our backs on the magnolia and shuffle up the hill, cracking leaves and leaves and leaves, a few the last to fall. Thank you.
I'm saying beautiful, beautiful. Love it. Okay. So next we have our pal Cal North.
Thank you.
See how I did that? I'm a poet,
I'm
right?
going
That's
to,
right.
I'm going to read a poem about my daughter Katie, and she is listed on Bill's blog, not as a poet but as an artist. So I thought that was appropriate. It's called Turning Pages. Time the Destroyer is Time the Preserver. That's by T.S. Eliot in The Dry Salvages. We rode miles of rolling country roads, past tobacco fields, crumbling farm shacks, vast woods of longleaf pine. Bike Rides with My Dad was her first book, illustrated, words and crayon drawings, her fascicles on soft cream-colored paper, bound in bright red yarn. When that book was made, my bike tire had gone flat. We walked 2 miles home and talked the whole way. She was 8. Spring was off in the distance after a month's turning days. 18 years later, it's almost summer. She's half a world away, an artist teaching English to children near Taipei. Our first video called Miles of Talk on Aesthetics and Poetics. Does it really exist, this destroyer, time? Asked Rilke years ago. But isn't time just a tablet of blank pages we draw on that turn one way while memory turns the other? Thank you.
Thank you, Cal. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Next, we'll have our communications guru, Ms. Hannah Ringler, to come on down and join us. Hannah, I'm going to pin you. There it is, pin. There you go.
Hey, I'm going to drop it in chat in case anyone else is having a little trouble with auditory processing this evening. There we go. So this is a little one. It's called On Reading Dorothy Wordsworth's Grasmere Journals. Exceedingly pleasant, she writes of her garden. William is ill and Coleridge has boils, and it's raining again, and her headache is back. But always the garden, exceedingly pleasant. The small starts rising in downy leaves. To pick a pea, snapping the sweet crisp stem with the nails. They gather green sap. The frilled cup of the pea covers her fingertips briefly. The first bite a clear morning when the frost has lifted and the iris blooms.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Is this the first time we've been together on an open mic?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for putting that in the chat. I'm going to have to think about doing that going forward. That's nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, we have Miss Laura Younger. I'm going to come and get you. Hold me. Remove this pen. I'm coming for Laura. There you go.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, this one's for Karen. It's called The Tree Sentries. In the late afternoon, gold light warm of your back deck, you gaze about, bend head to paper, to write in the quiet surround of the guardian trees. They have forgiven you the felling of their brethren, and in their roots they know that it was necessary. Those friends were not long for the world. Their roots, sensing the onset of death, no longer spoke of life, but were reduced to tired whispers in the dark earth. Thank you.
Beautiful. And I love the title. Thank you. Okay. Next we're going to have, how fitting is this, Karen, to come on down.
Laura, thank you for that poem. Look, we had a tree fall on our house in April, and after that we had 20 trees taken down, and I'm still trying to get over it. It was we had a tree guy come out and diagnose the hazard disease. We had a big tree problem going. Anyway, it's been killing me. Thank you. Oh my goodness, thank you for that poem. So this is a poem that I wrote with Laura on Sunday. So this is November 12th, sitting at the table in the sunroom looking out, after Ted Kuzer's poem, November 12th, 4:30 a.m. in winter morning walks. Oak leaf pirouetting whispers of breeze below the heavy green holly tree boughs at the end of some long gone spider's loose thread. Silence offers the hint of a humming tumbling through to sate the listening, that sound that fills ears when there's no sound to hear. Gray stills the rocking of chairs round the fire pit, strikes the stoic bark of the hickories as beige, brown, gold, almost silver leaf litter papers the yard, and the path rambling down to the dry creek, then up through the winter woods to the glimpses of open at the edge of the rising up ridge, always offering a possible rambling along. And then the white sun shreds in right through the windows. There you go. Writing with Laura in the house.
Karen is the hostess with the mostest, the poet who can
With
flow
the,
it. Okay.
with the sunroom I sit in a lot.
Thank you so much, Karen. Now, I've been taught by my mentor, Karen, that we should not end the show. So we should not end the show with ourselves. So I'm going to go next, and then we're going to close out our open mic with Pat Revere Steele. So here I go. I'm going to. Okay. All right. So in honor of Bill and his wonderful poetry in which he utilizes nature, I told him earlier that I just love the way he uses nature as nature, but also nature as metaphor to get across some really important concepts. And so thank you. So in honor of that, I, who am not usually a nature poet, I'm going to try to wax poetic a little bit on the river. This poem is going to be coming out soon in the Autoethnographer, and it is entitled Afrofuture's River Tears. It begins with this epigraph. This was his home, but now he would have to leave, for the water was rising, and there was no telling when or where it would stop. Richard Wright, Uncle Tom's Children, 1938. 1. Even the river, and the voice cried, "Let there be." And it was so, and it was all so loved. All creation was loved, even the river. Creature house, watered way, holder of the newest secrets of a blooming and budding earth, flowing to and through, a seeing and knowing witness of love. Until 2. The river waits. This old dry bed waits for the rain to move ancient sediment downstream, its hot mouth exposed and yearning. It waits for new life to fall from the sky like it once did, raging and flooding, overflowing its banks, taking in the forlorn living, spitting out the bloated dead, polishing captured stones and bones, trapping dark secrets, keeping confidences, covering truth, feeding ravenous spirits, drenching the professed redeemed, sanctifying them. This old dry bed will open wide its rough, gravelly mouth for water like wine, gurgle greedily in anger in the not enoughness, determined that if it ever feels again, it will take back all that it has lost, as soon as what was lost wanders within its reach. The young and the old, the prepared and the unready, the holy and the wicked. I will not be fooled. I have not forgotten. There will be righteous fury. There will be revolution. 3. Black forth back. Is this gift too late? It turning up after I'm dead, after we are all dead. The pushing, the pulling, the running, the breath, the beating, the dying. Is it too late? The river has seen it all, and angry it has run in its righteousness, polluted with exsanguinated corpses and dreams. It ebbs and tides rocking in and out, from age to age. Yet these ancient incantations persist in the mouths of elders and their ghosts, chants that float back time and bring the long dead, the too late, back to living, back to loving, worthy of love, delivered to love, whole. And last but not least, the wonderful Pat Revere Steele.
Wow. You sure you want me to read after that?
No.
I mean, really. I wasn't sure what I was going to read. This is a fairly new poem, and after our talk about community and remembering a little bit about how I got involved with the Poetry Society, which was indirectly through Tony Abbott. He was teaching a class in Valley Crucis, and there was a woman there named Sharon Sharp. And I asked her if she knew anything about this North Carolina Poetry Society, and she very quietly said, well, I'm president now. I said, oh, okay. When's the next meeting? And she said, September. I said, okay, I'll be there. Anyway, that was my first introduction to poetry community in North Carolina. And this poem is a new one called How to Rebuild Community. How to rebuild community. Coming out of the pandemic, I'm having trouble knowing how to act. This new landscape, more hard scrabble than highway. A tightrope walk, not a garden promenade. When I offer my outstretched hand to a woman I've just met, she fixes me with a chilly stare, says, I don't shake hands anymore. And suddenly I'm ashamed of my bacteria-filled palm, its brazen need for connection. Is it also infected with the virus? I'm tempted to rush away down the hall and lather that offending hand with hot, sudsy water, the way we scrubbed our vegetables not too long ago. How do I move from cautious to community? The knitters know. When they notice the chaos in the coffee shop, the customers shouting out orders, the din around them rising like bread, impossible to ignore. Jane stitches herself to the cash register. Linda begins bagging cookies. Kathy slices strawberry cake. Their hands smooth the angry air, grown thick with impatience and want. The knitter's hands fly like needles. Knit one, purl two. Opening, closing, shaping. Each palm holding a single need. Thank you.
Wonderful.
All learn from the knitters.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wonderful, wonderful. This has been such a fabulous night, and it's not quite over. We do have a bonus feature just for you. We're going to have our own very dear Bill Griffin to come back and close us out. So I'm coming back to pin you. There you are.
There you go.
Take it away.
Thanks again to everyone, and Karen and Regina, this has just been the best. Thank you so much. This is the opening poem from the book. We never give up hoping. Morning, frozen hard, pour boiling water into the bird bath. They will come to drink when I have gone. God of holy ice, holy steam, give my children water that all my hoping can't. Sound of wings, splash diminishing. Find the world again, iced over. Fill the kettle, holy water. Leaving you with the spirit of hope.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you,
Indeed.
Bill. You guys,
Definitely.
everybody, please feel free to open your mic up. And wow, Bill, thank you so much for sharing you and your words and your thoughts. And thank you, everybody, for coming tonight and sharing in this fabulousness.
Right. Right. On behalf
Let's
of the
just
like
group hug.
Regina and Karen.
oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
No. No.
It's all you.
Oh my goodness,
yeah.
you guys. Let's just do a group air hug, group applaud. Just oh my goodness. Thank you, everybody.
I have to say, North Carolina Poetry Society is one of the best communities I've been in, and I encourage anybody out there in listening land, because this is certainly being recorded, to if you are a poet, or if you want to be a poet, or you just like to be around poets,
Yes.
North Carolina Poetry Society is the place for you. And we just like to thank all of you in the Zoom room for listening, and we'd like to thank all of you out there for watching this recording. We
I
will
like how you
be
did
coming
that.
back soon with more in store from NCPS Presents external programs. And I just want to thank you all and bid you good night. Everybody have a good evening. And
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Mm.
you,
Bill.
everyone.
Nice
Wonderful
job.
Hearts,
night.
Really
hearts
well done.
full. Hearts full. Mm.